That's good stuff.
Get ready to get inspired. This is the Go4TheGoldy podcast.
Hey, it's Wednesday, November 17th, 2021, and today I'm joined by a literal power couple from New York. Please help me welcome Nick, DiLeo, and Shae Rao to the first in-person interview we've ever done. Welcome.
In person.
Yeah, so this is a big deal. We're crammed in my personal little studio here, but especially crammed because we have two people that are powerlifters, and we're not interviewing like swimmers or gymnasts today. We're interviewing people who are very powerful. But no, these are a couple of friends of mine from a very long time ago, and actually, I don't know if you guys have thought about it, but literally like a year ago. Mm-hmm. You guys were right here in Frisco Square.
We talk about it more than you think.
So why don't you tell the people with the story I'm referencing right now?
Okay, so I met Goldie when we were both back in Buffalo, and I was actually a runner at the time. We met at a running store, so that's crazy. I started off as a runner triathlete, and now that is long gone. But anyway, we came to visit last December, like I would say 2 weeks from today is when we came down, and we were pretty much sold on Dallas and that we wanted to move here, but we wanted a New Yorker perspective, and we came down, and Goldie and Jenny literally sold us on it. And then just then and there, from that night that we went out, talking about how it always feels like a vacation, and
I think your exact phrase was, I think when we were walking down Main Street, Frisco, you said, "Feels like you guys live in Disney World for adults."
Yeah.
And
I have a video. I have a video on my phone, and I think it was either me or you said, "People really live like this?"
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the quality of life here is great, and I think the city of Frisco should pay me to be an ambassador because I've had like 5 people move here because of me.
No, yeah, 100%.
But you guys have actually some big news in that time since you didn't live here. Got engaged.
Yeah.
Got a dog.
Yeah.
Got a house.
Yeah.
So a lot to be thankful for, a lot to be excited for. So I'm happy for you guys.
Thank you.
Happy that I could at least be a part of the story.
A big part, actually. I mean,
It's pretty
huge
cool.
part.
It's
We
pretty
moved
cool.
here.
Well, I'm a little guy, so a little part. But so I think let's to get started here. Whoa, my dog just walked by and knocked the camera around. There's no earthquake, so we're good. But I think the first part we'll get started talking about here is, the sport that you guys compete in. So I guess, Nick, let's start with you because you alluded to a second ago that you were a triathlete. So we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Nick, obviously, look at this guy. He's enormous. And how long have you been doing this for? And, what originally got you interested into the sport?
Well, in college, I was a baseball player, and my junior year around, I had a shoulder surgery my freshman year, but then around my junior year, I wasn't playing that much, and a few of the guys I roomed with, they were in like the suite next to me. They would go to the gym regularly, so I was like, I'll go with you guys. Let me see what this is all about. I hated working out. The only time I ever worked out was when the coaches forced me to do it.
It's crazy that you hated working out, and now you do that competitively.
Because it was just exercise before then.
Right.
And I still to this day hate exercise.
Really?
I like to train. I don't like exercise.
Okay, I can see that. Okay, I get that. Okay.
So then went to the gym, the normal, chest day, arm day, bro lifting. Like didn't really know what we were doing, but we just saw it on TV and did the same thing for a few years then, until eventually I was in Fort Lewis in 2017, and I started getting interested in like the sport. I started learning about powerlifting, and I met a couple who I'm still really good friends with now. I've visited them since in Hawaii and stuff, who they were from the fort, and I met them at a meet because I went to go check it out and say, hey, I want to see this in person. I went to the meet, thought it was awesome, and I saw him, my friend, with a military patch on. So after the meet, I walked up to him and said, hey, you're from Fort Lewis? He's like, oh yeah, we train at this gym on post at this time. I was like, oh, come train with us. So I went and I trained with them for like 9 months after that, the next 9 months, they took me to my first meet. They forced me to sign up because they thought I wasn't ready, which everybody thinks they're not ready for their first meet, but just do it.
Well, it's nerve-wracking, right?
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot.
But just do it. They took me to trained me for my first meet. They took me to my first meet. We trained together all summer, and then eventually I moved back to New York, but we've stayed in touch since, and I've been doing meets since then. So,
Wow.
I think it was April 2018 was my first official powerlifting meet, and since then, now a few more strongman shows thrown in.
So I got to ask you, what was your position in baseball?
In college, I pitched only, which was a big mistake, especially after the shoulder surgery. Because then once I started gaining some muscle and I started hitting again at the end of my senior year, I went to play summer ball one last time before I enlisted in the military, and I was like, oh crap, I could hit. I screwed up. So yeah, I actually, just off of that summer, because I did so well in the one summer, I had the guy who owned the league had good connections with an independent ball team, and which is like pro, but not affiliated with one of the major teams.
Right.
So it's a tough lifestyle. So he
Yeah.
offered, he said, hey, like I got a contact, like we can get you on a squad. And I was so mentally ready for the military that I told him no. I don't know what happened, but on those teams, you can play for 2 weeks and get cut.
Right.
Or
right.
you can play, do well, and then one of the 30 teams say, hey, like, let's sign this guy.
So you've basically been an athlete your whole life, but now, and obviously both of you, your service in the military, much appreciated, on the heels of Veterans Day here, right? But, as an athlete, you kind of, and this is kind of the concept of like the whole show is I'm trying to introduce people to, my dog is currently urinating in the house. There it is. But, the concept of the show is to basically inspire others to figure out, their niche in life and realize that it's not too late. There's so many people, I think, that have your story minus finding another sport, or finding another passion, and that's kind of the concept of the show. So I love that story. So let's hold on to that for a second. Now let's go to you, Shae. So obviously you said, when we met, we were working at a running shoe store, and you were into that whole world. And so how did you get to this now?
Yeah, my story is completely different. So I started running because I went through something and I needed something else to like prove to myself that I was strong. And I come from a family of runners. My uncle was like a collegiate runner. My father does Ironman triathlons. So that was just kind of natural for me to start running. So I went from couch to half marathon. I found like this training program online, and it took, I think it was like 4 months, and I did my first half marathon, and that was great. But then I started.
Which one was it? What marathon was it?
It was in, I don't remember the name of it, but it was in Brooklyn, and it was like a women's only.
Okay.
Which is another reason why that was the one I selected. So yeah, that was great. But I was never good at the sport. I never podiumed. I had only participation trophies from running and triathlon. And then I tried to get better at triathlon, so I started weight training. And then it was just kind of natural. Like I think the first day in the gym, I was able to put 45 plates on the squat bar and hit it for reps. So I was like, what the, you know?
Yeah.
So everyone was telling me, like all my like people were telling me to get into bodybuilding, that I should be a powerlifter. But then it was never anything serious. I was still like living my best degenerate life. I did join the military young, but it's very focused on partying when you're young,
right.
When you're a young soldier. So I was fit for Army standards, but not for like powerlifting standards. But then I ended up deploying in 2018 to 19, and there's literally nothing else to do besides workout over there. And so when I was in Afghanistan, I just got with a bunch of people that powerlifted. Is that a word? I don't know.
Well, you said it, so it's a word now.
And then I just took to it. And I downloaded bodybuilding.com app, and I followed Lane Norton's PH3. And that was and it's actually considered a advanced intermediate program. But when you're overseas, like that's all, you
You're
work.
just laser sharp focused.
Right. You work and you work long days, but you don't worry about grocery shopping. You don't worry about laundry.
Right, that's
you
it.
just go to your job, and then that's it. And then you're in the desert. So what do? You go
and
to
there's
the
not
gym.
a lot of extracurricular either, like you said, the partying.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Afghanistan, you couldn't even carry around a backpack because like suicide bombers was a thing. So like you couldn't really carry around like your laptop to go somewhere to watch it. Like it was just.
That's wild.
So you went to the gym. And so then I came home in February. In March, I had my first powerlifting competition. I knew nothing about the sport still. Like the day before I got my knee sleeves for the competition, the week before I got my belt. But at the meet, I met so many people that were so willing to just pull you in and coach you. And that was like the first. I feel like in running, everyone, at least from what I saw, what's your time? What's your speed, and it's very like cutthroat.
That's right.
And then in the powerlifting meet, especially amongst women, it was so like, I just want to see her lift more. Like you never want to see someone fail a lift,
That's
even
cool.
if they're lifting more than you. And then it just kind of.
So you feel like a real part of the community, regardless of what level you're at.
Yeah,
you know,
100%. And then from there, I started Olympic weightlifting. And Nick actually got me into strongman, and I feel like even more so that community feeling is within those other sports.
So real quick, before we move on there, can you explain the difference? Because I certainly don't know, and I'm sure some people listening don't know the difference between those two.
Powerlifting is just the 3 main lifts, which is squat, bench, and deadlift, and you go in that order. And the competition is you have 3 attempts, and it's for you to hit your heaviest attempt, and the heaviest number of each lift makes your total, and then that's basically how you would podium.
Gotcha,
And it's within a weight class and everything like that. And then there's, certain rules. I don't think we need to get into the rules of it, but then Olympic weightlifting is the snatch and the clean and jerk.
I'd assume those are what's in the Olympics.
Right, yeah. And it's basically the same concept. The only difference in Olympic weightlifting is in powerlifting, you only get a medal based off of your total. In Olympic weightlifting, you get a medal based off of who has the best snatch, who has the best clean and jerk, and who has the best total.
Gotcha, okay.
And
so
then,
it's very so it's really different sides of the same coin.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. It's just the movements are what constitute the
yeah.
difference. Okay.
And then strongman is just a completely different animal. What was it originated from? Like just
It
odd
started,
objects?
Right. So it started as a way to take athletes from every other sport, including like they had football players, they had basketball players, they had all team sport athletes, runners, triathletes. Also, they had bodybuilders and powerlifters, and they put them all together and created these weird events like log pressing, some normal events that we know now like deadlifting, but weird events, carries, loads. Can you put a keg over your head? Like, why? But they took this and events that people had never trained before,
right,
and said who would be the best at these random events that are all very heavy, sometimes for reps, sometimes for a max lift, but that became strongman, and then eventually it caught on so much that people trained specifically for strongman.
That's really interesting, and I'll tell you why. Because I think I've kind of had this. Okay, so that whole concept that you just kind of explained, that's how I feel about obstacle course racing. I feel like that is so new that people don't know how to specifically train for it, because it's kind of taking that concept that you just said, but it's kind of narrowing the scope down a little bit more to where it's like there's endurance now involved in it too. And because I just did a Spartan, a beast, so it's a half marathon and 30 obstacles.
Oh my God.
And it was pretty intense.
I'd rather die.
Intense.
My events are 60 seconds.
It was nuts. And so it's like kind of the same concept though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just
No,
because there's triathletes there, there's CrossFitters there, there's runners there, and the runners suck at the obstacles, you know what I mean? And the CrossFitters suck at the running, you know? And it was just I excelled. I think I came in 6th, and very good, and I killed it on the runs. You know, I did well in the obstacles, but not like you at your first. That was my first Spartan. I don't know what the hell I was doing. You know what I mean? So obviously I could have done better, but the running was the majority of it, so that's where I excelled. But like you said, it's people don't know how to train for it yet. I think at some point.
What we noticed is we did our first strongman competition this year in January actually, and we both came in second.
Congrats, that's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great. But what we noticed was we had already such a great fundamental base from powerlifting. Because within any of the sports, you train the squat, the bench, and the deadlift, regardless. In Olympic weightlifting, you do it. It's just an accessory. It's not your main lift. And the same thing even with strongman training. But what we noticed, the other people that just train strongman, they're really good technique-wise at lifting the odd objects. So they're great. They could pick up a keg, a stone, a sandbag. But they don't have that.
Like you?
Yeah.
Right. But they don't have that nitty-gritty strength that you need. So we found that even the girl that came in first was a professional bodybuilder. So like at the end of the
Huh.
day, the people
the only
that
girl that beat her is
the
a pro
people
bodybuilder.
the people that excelled
The only
were
guy who beat me weighed like
100 pounds more than
he was
him.
like 360 and
Yeah.
like squats 800
What?
and benches 500.
But-
yeah.
but
I
like-
can't even wrap my head around that.
Like what you said
what?
is you have this great base. Like we noticed that it's really the same thing in strongman. Like
Yeah.
you can learn how to pick up whatever odd object you want, but unless you have that,
limit strength.
unless you have those
the word.
fundamentals, you're not going to really do well as other people.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So, and for those out there, follow them on Instagram. They document everything. It's really interesting. Go ahead and give them your Instagram handles.
I don't even remember mine. I think I'm
There you go.
Shae.Rao.
Oh yeah. And DiLeo 25.
I've shown his to like everybody leading up to the show because I'm like, what was the last competition you did where
It was-
you have the multiple videos in your post?
Yeah, that was what, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago.
He's carrying, so it was a Texas size, or a Texas size. You couldn't stay in Texas. A Texas,
Shaped,
yeah.
shield.
And how much was that?
That was a 300-pound shield for max distance in 60 seconds.
And how long did you do?
I don't know how far I went.
It's ridiculous, whatever. Like
I don't know what it was.
if you
I
watch
did
him,
get the 60 seconds, but I had to take a few breaks and catch my breath with it on my knees. 'Cause
Yeah.
I can't put it on the floor.
you just watch him like perform, and it's incredible, you know. So
200 feet?
Something like that.
I think it might have been 200. 'cause it
Which
was
it's
5.
just another like side note. Like with strongman, you can actually trace a lot of the events back to like these historical
Right.
folklore stories of like these
pretty cool.
ridiculously strong people. Like the Usapl stone does not
Yeah,
originate
it's a
in
stone.
Iceland.
Yeah, it's a real
And
stone.
a lot of these things come from stories of these people in different countries that just did
Wow.
this
The
extraordinary
Denny stone. too.
extraordinary feats of strength.
Yeah.
And
so it
yeah.
brings culture, like it just you know, wow, that's really neat. I like that a lot.
And there's a
That's-
show on the National Geographic. What channel was that on?
I don't remember because we
There-
saw it on YouTube.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a show where they took. It was from I think 2018. A few of the top strongmen in the world went to all different countries to do all different events from like history. Like history has it that this guy did this event, did this
Oh,
lift
wow.
in like
What a
the,
cool idea.
in like the 1700s, and then they would go and either do it or do something similar and like pay respects to it. It was basically 8 episodes that went around the world, so it was really cool.
Wow, that's a cool concept.
Yeah.
So when I know we touched on it briefly before we like turn this on here, but as far as like a season, what's the typical season like for you guys? I know like you mentioned that it's not something that like triathlon, right? I'm not swimming in December, you know, where it's basically like April to now November. You know, there's an
Well,
off season.
if
For you
you're-
guys, how's it work?
If you're good enough, I think you do pay attention to like when nationals is and when worlds is, which nationals is usually over the summer. So that would kind of dictate, you know, when you are trying to peak out. But even then, most powerlifters will do 2. At that level, they'll do like 2 a year.
So how do you peak? Like what? I get like in triathlon, you know, you have A, B, and C races. So an A race is like my national championship I went to last week, you know, and a B race is like it's something that you want to perform well at, but you're not like peaking for it. And then a C race is you're just doing it for the hell of it, you know, maybe practice a new technique or a new, you know, introduce something new to kind of put in a race situation. Is there peaking in bodybuilding? Obviously, like you're peaking to that specific day. Can you maintain the strength that you need for a powerlifting event, or do you peak for that as well? I never really thought about it, but now that we're talking about it, I wonder.
I feel like you can explain it better.
So, I mean, everyone's different. Everyone has a different method, a different style, different coaches. But generally speaking, you'll have your off-season phase, which could be 4 weeks, it could be 12 weeks, whatever it is, where you'll maybe try some new stuff, but you'll also do a lot more volume. You'll do maybe variation exercises. So instead of doing your normal bench press grip, maybe you're doing wide grip bench press to work on a weak point in your chest, or narrow grip to work on your triceps, whatever it is. So you do that and build up a lot of work capacity, and what that will do is it'll keep your fitness levels up and also put on some muscle, because although training very heavy does build muscle, there's a point where it only builds so much. You need more work.
Okay.
And you also need to get your body, your tendons, your ligaments, everything prepared for the heavyweight. Because if you
Gotcha.
just go into heavy weight, that's when your technique breaks down, you screw up, you get hurt, you get burnt out neurologically, whatever it is. So you'll do that off-season phase, and then everyone's peaking phase is different. But generally, let's say it's a 12 weeks. A lot of people like 12 weeks. You'll start at, let's say your goal is 100%. Like whatever your 100% number is, your goal to hit at the meet. You would start, let's say you start with 80%, and you'll maybe do 5 reps with it or 3 reps with it. And slowly over the 12 weeks, you'll build that up. And as you build up the percentages, you lower the reps.
So when you talk in a competition, you're going for a 1 rep max?
Yes.
Gotcha. So you're
You
okay.
build towards that.
Okay.
There's different
I
methods.
gotcha.
There's, you do accessories with it. You do speed work with it to keep up your, because as the weight gets heavier, you're going to move slower, but you want to train yourself to move faster. So speed work
gotcha.
with it.
Okay.
You got to still do the volume or you'll lose that work capacity you built in the off season. So there's a lot of ways to make it work.
'Cause I
but
think
it's
a lot
good
of
to do.
people look at, a sport like that, and I don't think they give it the credit that's due. It's just, there's a lot of things like that, right? That you don't see the hours and hours of work and dedication and the behind the scenes, that goes into
Right.
it. And, because it's like, I can only imagine, like for me, and I always, use triathlon as the example because that's, what I do, but, it's an hour race, typically first sprint. And there's points in the race where you may, not have had the best transition, or, you may have not run as fast in your first mile, but you can make up for it in your second. For you guys, it's one lift, what is mentally, what is that like? That's got to be really intense.
A lot of
So
strategy.
I was just gonna say we actually had this conversation not too long ago where it's like when you're under that maximal load, where just to give you an idea, Nick is the type of lifter where he wants to, it's called going 9 for 9, so hitting all of your lifts, because throughout the day you have 9 lifts to hit. 3 of each,
Three
right?
of each, okay, gotcha.
So he wants to go 9 for 9. So he wants his 100% to be his third attempt, and he wants to have a good day. I don't approach it that way. I want to go balls to the wall for my third attempt, and I want my second attempt to be 100%, and then just see if I can go for it. Because when you're in that environment, the energy is so high. I mean, I think every single time I've gone for a max lift, at least on the squat, I've hit a 20-pound PR. Like, that's absurd for me to
Wow.
continuously do that, but I really thrive off of the energy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So the ways that you approach training, even in that way, is a little bit different. But something that I struggle with is meet day nerves. So I cannot keep any food down.
Right.
And I know in running in
Really?
triathlon world, they say nothing new on meet day.
Right, right.
Wear clothes that you've worn before, eat the same things you eat during training. I can do all that and just, I don't know what comes over me. I just can't stomach anything.
We're working on
So we're working on it. So by the time we get to deadlifts,
Grape juice?
the last strongman competition we did, someone gave me watermelon with salt on it, and
Salt.
that helped me a lot because I was depleted. I mean, I was not drinking water because I was puking it. I was
So you get that worked up on game day?
yeah.
or
I
on
just
meet
so
day-
by
meet
the
day?
time so by the time the deadlifts come, I'm like I'm done. I mean, the last powerlifting competition I did, I passed out during my.
I got a great video. I memed it. It was
Just
great.
I'm at the top of the lockout, and I just black and I'll go limp.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
So someone like him, he doesn't really have those problems.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I said, he wants every lift to look like it's a first attempt, which you want it to look like it just moves really quickly. So,
Well, you do a good job of that because it looks like that. When
It
you
doesn't feel it.
which his last meet, I mean, he, you could have done so much more on his
Well,
powerlifting
it's-
meet, but
Oh,
that's another,
powerlifting?
yeah.
Oh yeah, I did. That wasn't a good day.
So when
Oh,
you
good, I'm bad.
at a lift or at a meet, I mean, from your first lift to the 9th lift, how long is that? Is that an entire day? Is it a couple hours?
It
Is it
depends.
an hour? Like, how's it go?
It depends on how big the meet is.
It's like in December.
In
meet-
December, I did a meet in the middle of
January?
COVID. It was in December.
Oh, yeah, it was before we came.
Yeah, and after.
Yeah, you're right.
And anyways, there was 20 people there. So we weighed in at 8:30 and we were done by 12.
So I know, you rolled your eyes and said 20 people. Is that a lot? Is that
So-
not a lot?
That's not a lot
That's
at
not a
all.
lot of people.
A
Okay.
normal meet would be capped between 40 and 60.
Okay.
So her meet was not even 20. It was, I think, 12.
Like, people just dropped
So-
out because of COVID. And for example, my first meet was 60 people, and that was all day. We were there at 7 in the morning, and we didn't leave until 7 p.m. And I mean, 7 p.m. is the
That's
awards are
long-
done.
that's long.
You know.
Right.
So you don't have to stay that long, especially if you know you're not going to podium. But it's also not that way. Like, people want to see other people get their awards and
Yeah.
stuff.
Right,
so.
you want to support, like you said, it's a
Yeah.
good community.
But then he just did a meet. There was like 100 people there.
It was
100?
It was a money meet, so
okay.
very few meets there's prize money. This meet had prize money. I didn't do it because of that. I did it because it just lined up with my schedule. But it was 120 lifters and 2 platforms going at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah. It was
So are there
wild.
parts of the country, like I'd assume Texas is probably pretty into this.
Mhm. It is.
New York, I'd probably assume. No,
No.
really?
Yeah.
You know, the
Yeah.
tough attitude,
It's-
you think.
it's
you
get-
know,
No.
it's
they
get
wanna-
it
And you know what?
there.
It depends on what federation too. So we compete in the USPA, and
U.S.
US
Powerlifting Association.
right, and they have a tested and a non-tested federation. So I like that because I compete non-tested, obviously. And then you have USAPL, which is another really popular one, which they say they're drug-free. But I mean, I don't know. It's questionable amongst the like really big lifters.
Yeah.
So at least
don't
in
care.
New York, it seemed that the lifters that lifted more went to the USAPL than USPA. But it's like the opposite for men.
Gotcha,
Yeah, I was
okay.
gonna say.
I was going to say Gusa. I don't know if you know him. You met him when we were out there one time. He just stopped in and says hello. So,
Hey.
hi Gusa, how you doing? Okay, that's really interesting. So, what did we just ask about the country, different parts, New York?
Texas is a
Okay,
big state.
gotcha. So now, the gyms. Obviously, you're not going to LA Fitness. You know what I mean? Like, you're not. What kind of gym do you go to train for something like
Which
this?
you can start there. I started at a LA.
I mean, you could finish there too. It's just your choice.
Yeah, and I was really doing the majority of my training when I came home at a 24-hour before I went to a powerlifting gym. But yeah, powerlifting gyms will have the racks that you will use on comp day, and then they'll have all the specialty bars.
If you want to do it right, you got to go to a gym like that.
The bars.
I mean-
the bars are a big factor.
If you compete USPA, which they use different bars based off of the lift.
Yeah.
You have a squat bar, which is heavier and thicker in diameter.
Is that is that 55 pounds or how much?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
okay.
So it sits on your back differently. And then the deadlift bar, it's meant to have a little bit of whip in it.
Okay.
And it doesn't have all the knurlings because you don't need it because it's
Wait,
for
when you say
deadlifting.
whip, what do you
you mean in
mean
the
to
middle.
like?
Right.
Whip. What's that mean?
So just how much the bar will bend with the weight on the ends of it. Whereas USAPL, they use a power bar or a stiff bar for all 3 lifts, and it pulls very differently, especially which I would say at my level, which, I mean, I deadlift, well, last time I deadlifted was like 325. So it's not going to whip that much with 325. But the guys who are deadlifting 600 pounds, you can feel a difference in a deadlift bar versus a stiff
so
bar.
interesting.
I feel it.
So,
Four plates you feel.
so USAPL, they use all stiff bars. So if you're going to be in that federation, you want to train on that kind of bar. And if you
Gotcha.
want to lift in USPA, obviously you want to train on what you're going to do on, you're
Right,
not going
right.
to train on a bike that you're not going to bike
Exactly.
on.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So I mean, once you get to your event, you want to act as if you've already done it, right?
Right.
I mean, that's kind of the concept. Yeah. So I think people want to know. We'll start with you, Nick. PRs in powerlifting. What do you got? So squat,
Right.
bench, deadlift, right? Those are
Right.
3.
Yeah.
So yeah, my last meet was the only time in my life I had a good squat prep. Squat went great in meet prep, and it was so good we didn't even realize we screwed it up because
Yeah.
we
His
called.
third attempt looked like
We called for it
A
was
warm-up.
it was 590 I think, and it was a mistake because it moved like it should have been maybe my opener. Because we didn't. I had never peaked good on squat before. Like my form was shit. My peak, I would squat more at the meet because you're excited, but it's just not good. And this meet, like everything clicked perfect, and we did not take advantage of it.
That's insane.
Yeah, we really screwed up. But it moved real good, so I was happy. My weakness became like not my strength, but once I hit in the 650s to 7, that'll probably be more of a strength.
One side, like you just that's.
I mean, in knee sleeves, knee wraps I throw them on now, I'll do a lot better because there's
Yeah.
different rules in different classes. Like you wrap up your knees, you can get 80 pounds out of that.
It's so fascinating
Yeah.
to me, these rules
It's
and like
wild.
the different
But,
strategies to
yeah.
it. I mean, obviously I knew there's a lot to it, but like I didn't know what to it, and
Yeah.
that's just so
Yeah.
crazy. All these different
Right.
Straight, I don't know. That's awesome. There's a whole world and that's why I love talking to people doing shit that I have no idea about because I love learning about this kind of stuff. All right, so what's the number on the bench or squat? I mean,
That was a 590 in competition.
590 pounds.
That same meet I
Which,
did.
by the way, with powerlifters, all that matters is what you hit in a comp.
Yeah,
Like your
gym
gym
doesn't
PR
matter.
doesn't
Right,
matter.
right. That's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I ran a 4-minute
Like
mile
my-
by myself,
Right.
but
Right,
yeah.
Like in the gym, my bench, I did it like the way I wanted to do it. I've hit the 4-plate bench, the 405, but it wouldn't have passed in competition.
Gotcha. Okay.
I haven't done it in competition yet. And then what did I did a 385 in that meet.
Do
which
they make
was
you
all-
pause when you come
Yes,
down?
You have to unrack it. You have to hold it. They say start, then you come down. They say press, then you press. They say rack, then you rack.
Gotcha. So it's on
Yeah, it
the little
sucks.
cadence to it. Gotcha.
Yeah. So that meet prep actually was a very bad bench meet prep. It went terrible.
So if you had one where all three go well, doesn't sound like it.
Yes, I did. Well, not really squat, but my third meet was probably like my best meet in terms of what I should have done and what I did do. This meet, I screwed it up on squat because went nowhere near as heavy as I should have. Bench, I did on meet day what I should have done based on how crappy my meet prep was.
Okay.
And then deadlift, had a really bad meet prep for deadlift too, and my second attempt was a 672, and that was all right. And once I pulled that, I was like, actually, I think I have 7 today. And then my left knee locked out early, and I lost it. I've since in
That's
my
wild.
strongman, I pulled 700 with like good speed actually.
Wow.
And then the problem was
700 pounds.
that was my second attempt. So my third attempt was 730, but at that point, powerlifting and strongman are very different. So in strongman, the rules and everything can change. So in this case, it was basically whoever's left in the competition, you just go in order. And there was only 4 guys left in the entire competition out of 100. I think it was 100 or 90 something at that weight. So I pulled 700, and only 3 guys went, plus they switched it down to 1 bar. 3 guys went, and I was back up to do 730.
Oh,
And
so it was a quick turnaround.
usually in powerlifting, you rest anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes between attempts. You get a full neurological reset. I didn't have, and that's like 3 minutes is like speed work.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
so I didn't have the time. I got it to my knees, the 730. I
Wow.
dropped it. I was pissed, but I know if I had my normal
Right.
rest, it should have been good because the 700 I was really.
How many
happy.
meets have you done in your life?
Oh, not a lot. I've done 4 USPA meets. I've done 2 push-pulls at Metroflex. We got the next one coming up in 3 weeks, which is just a charity event. It's just bench and deadlifts. A lot of fun.
You should come and
It's so
see
much
the
fun.
environment.
I want to. I
Yeah.
definitely
It would
want
be
to.
exciting.
What's the date on that?
3rd.
December 3rd, yeah.
Okay.
It's just for fun. Like, I just came off a strongman meet, so I'll be nowhere near prepared for this meet, but we're doing it just for fun.
Yeah, I
I've
mean, I
done
want to
that
go
twice.
and see the atmosphere here. I mean, when you guys visited, I think you were going to maybe do a meet, and I think it wound up not working out, right?
No, that was the
It was
one where
the
like
same
no
one.
one showed up.
Gotcha.
The 12.
Oh, yeah. I know
Yeah.
what you're saying.
So, your maxes. How about you, Shae? Let's go over your maxes here.
So I'm gonna talk about my gym maxes because
You haven't
I
competed since
haven't competed in
Since, like,
almost
none.
a year now. Yeah. So I actually did I peaked over the summer, but because we were moving, I wanted to commit to like lifting heavy, but not with a meet because I was like only lifting 2 days a week sometimes. Like I just could not commit. It was crazy. Anyways, that day, best squat of my life, I hit 308 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, that was an awesome day. My bench, now with a broken foot, I've been doing a lot of chest work, and I've been doing what's called Larsen Press. So your feet are like straight out on the bench, so you don't have any leg drive. My bench now is better than it was when I was like normal, fully healthy.
That's so crazy.
So I think
That's so crazy.
the best I did was I just hit 145 for a paused, feetless, legless bench, just recently.
And if you can't tell on the camera, but she has broken her foot. She's got a whole thing going on. So most people would use that as an excuse to say, hey, you know what, this is my rest time, not Shae. She's grinding.
Well, it's easy when your partner is also in the same sport as you know, because he does stuff and I get jealous because I'm like, I want to compete, and you just get that, you kind of get like vicariously drive through
Right.
him lifting.
Iron sharpens iron, you know. And
Yeah.
if one of the irons is getting sharp, you know, you want to.
So yeah, I had surgery last Friday, and I hit that bench yesterday.
Which is ridiculous.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So,
That's absolutely
So
incredible.
I think 150, 155. When
yeah,
she's
so
healthy, and then a good meat prep peaking cycle. We'll see. Maybe you get a 160 soon.
and so then my best deadlift
That's
is
doable.
325, but like I
Oh.
said, yeah.
330. We pulled 330
Oh, maybe
at Metroflex
330.
last year.
Yeah, 330.
All right, give me 1 second. I'm gonna have to get the dog out of here. It keeps shaking the camera. Hold on.
Yeah, you pulled 330 at Metroflex.
I forgot.
And that was testing out sumo. That wasn't even like. Yeah, she tested out a new stance last year for the charity meet, just for fun, and pulled 330. So I'm sure once you eat.
But like I said, my issue is I can't eat. And so when I was like peaking over the summer, my deadlifts were chef's kiss. And then just that day,
You're tired.
I just was tired. I was malnourished.
And it's
so,
tough to do
That's crazy.
without a crowd.
Yeah.
There was a crowd there, like the whole gym was excited for her squat, so it felt like a meet day squat almost probably.
Yeah.
But by the time like bench and deadlift, like everyone went home and it was just like us
In the
quiet
gym.
in the gym and her
Yeah.
trying to hit like a PR deadlift after doing all that squat and the bench. It was just, I get it.
Have you ever tried like or thought about going to like a sports psychologist or someone like that, like to? Because it feels like,
It's getting
I mean,
pretty
that just could launch you to a new level. You know,
You know,
strong
I
like
was,
that sounds like crippling that
I
you're
was
dealing
gonna
with that.
say, I don't want this to turn into like a mental health episode, but when I was deployed and I was powerlifting, I think I got so good so quickly because I was channeling all these like mental issues from
Yeah.
deployment into my training, and it got to a point where it was unhealthy, and I had like serious injuries with my shoulder. I couldn't even. An Olympic barbell for women is 33 pounds.
You didn't
I
get hurt from lifting,
couldn't
though.
even. No, I didn't get hurt from lifting, but I just kept hammering my body.
Gotcha.
So like I was saying, a women's Olympic barbell is only 33 pounds. I couldn't even bench that. I mean, I couldn't even curl 1 pound. Like
Holy
my
cow.
whole
You're
left
all
arm
jacked
was,
up.
yeah. So then I actually did go to see like a therapist and work through those issues. And I've definitely, if I knew what I know now with how to approach training, how to approach sleep, how to approach nutrition,
Yeah.
I probably would have been such a better lifter. So now I'm better. I'm in the right headspace. I
Good.
know what I need to do.
Yeah.
But now with all the injuries, I'm just trying to get back into like that drive for training
Right.
like I had before. So yeah, but
People don't understand, like, if you're not an athlete or never have been, I don't care what sport you're doing, like, there's just such a mental side to everything that you do because when you're not doing it, you're thinking about it, right? And
do
you're
that
thinking
all day.
about, not only are you thinking about your next workout, but you're also maybe second guessing, you know, your efforts from previous workouts or previous, you know, experiences or.
Okay to that.
And I mean, I've been going through that too personally. I mean, I had the national championship in Milwaukee in August, and for the first time in my life, I had a panic attack in the middle of the water.
Wow.
It's horrific. Like that's
Wow.
I've never experienced it. Like my body just started shutting down.
my dad calls the triathlon swims though combat swims.
It is. It's a nightmare. They're
Yeah.
crazy. And I was in the middle of Lake Michigan, I think, and my body just like shut down. I had to call a kayak over, and I flopped over the side of a kayak, and that sticks with you, you know. So like, this race last weekend in Arizona was like a big hurdle for me because leading up to it, I was really anxious because that I've done, I don't know, maybe like 50 triathlons, but never had that happen to me. But I only had it happen once for me to like have that in my head,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like demons, you know. It's so I, you know, getting over it. I'm still like terrified of it, but I did it, you know.
Yeah.
So I know what you mean. I mean, obviously your situation's much different than mine, but it's just I get too really worked up on race days, and that situation is like something I'm gonna have to work through next year. But
Yeah.
all right, moving on. Gusa actually asked, "Have you ever had an accident during a competition?"
Like an accident, like shit yourself?
Oh yeah.
I have not actually. So
We've all seen the YouTube videos, you know.
Yeah, that's
so
the thing.
that's a thing with
Yeah.
women, like pelvic floor strength, especially women that pull sumo. You'll see quite a few
because of like the
women.
wide grip or whatever, or wide stance.
Right, you'll see quite a few women pee themselves on the platform.
Interesting.
I surprisingly haven't, but in, I don't know what this was, like March, I was training, was actually doing strongman training, but eventually did a powerlifting meet, but a Zercher carry where you hold the bar like in your arms,
Okay,
like this, and carry it. And
Those are painful.
yeah, I was basically going max effort on those. Each week we were increasing it. We did it for like 4 weeks. And I remember one set where I was walking and I thought, this is it. Like I'm in the middle of this like military installation gym. Like everybody here is, you know, all the same community, and I'm about to shit everywhere. And I made it to the end and I dropped the bar and I was okay. But
And they just kept going to the bathroom.
I thought I accepted it.
But
In the middle of the lift, I
just to
accepted it.
add to that, though, Nick has actually shit himself as an adult
Yeah.
Just not in competition.
quite a few times. So for him, like me knowing him, for him to say like, no, I didn't actually shit myself during the surgery carries, to me that's shocking.
Right.
Because it's taken a lot less for
Because
him
in
to
normal
shit
day to day, he's
Yeah.
just, you know, let the rip.
It's been a while. I've done it
It's been a while,
I've
he
done
said.
it multiple times.
Well, I guess the next question I have for you guys, I'm sure, you know, I'm curious about this, but I'm sure others are as well. What's a diet like? Do you do like the macros thing, or are you just eating everything that you can? What's the timing like for your nutrition? Like, let's get into that a little bit, because I've talked to so many different. You're episode 47, and I've talked to so many different kinds of athletes.
46.
And every one of these is just so different, how these athletes, you know, fuel themselves. So I'm interested to hear about what nutrition is like for you guys.
So I actually coach nutrition through Liberty, but I've never actually.
And we're going to shelve Liberty for a second. We'll get to that in a second. That's
Okay.
after the food here.
Which, like, I remember you said something before, like, people don't realize the work that powerlifters go into, but I feel like powerlifting has this stigma that you're like a fat shit and you powerlift.
I think that's true. Yeah, I think a lot of people think that.
Which now I definitely am seeing a difference. Like, powerlifting is a weight class sport, so now more people are in their off season going through their bulk phase and trying to put on as much muscle mass and strength as they can, and then cutting down to that weight class where, you know, they can be competitive, sometimes healthy or sometimes with like a 20-pound water cut, which is extremely unhealthy. But with powerlifting and really any type of strength training, nutrient timing is most important. So at the maximal effort, you, like, a blanket thing is to eat 1 gram of protein per body mass, and some people go by lean body mass, some people just go by like what your weight is on the scale, but then you want to take certain percentages of that and eat it around, you know, 30 minutes before, 30
When you
minutes
say gram
after.
of protein, are you saying per body mass, like per pound?
Right,
Or, okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. So if you weigh 150 pounds, you want to be eating 150 grams of protein every day.
Gotcha.
But then you want to take a certain percentage of that and carbs and make sure you're eating that before, make sure you're eating a certain amount after, and then it's basically like built around what time are you going to train and like you backtrack from then. Like, what time do I need to have breakfast, lunch? When do I need to have my pre-workout meal? Nick is really big into the intra nutrition, so he always has electrolytes with him. He always has some type of carb with him. Right. Not everyone does that, but I mean, it is what it is. I don't actually do that. I should start.
Working on it.
We're working on that.
Then it becomes easier on meat day to eat. Well,
Well, there's
Yeah.
always just one freaking thing to add, you know what I mean? And then, like, in a month from now, some study could come out that completely turns everything on its head, you know what I
Right.
mean? And
Which is another thing why I only focus on the supplements that are scientifically proven to give you benefits, and that's like 5. So like whey protein, creatine, fish oils, probiotics, and I'm forgetting one. But things like
we'll get back to you.
what is it that people take? BCAAs.
Branched chain amino acids, yeah.
Unless you are already structuring your protein intake perfectly, it's not going to help you. And if you are structuring your protein intake perfectly, you don't need it. It's not going to really add any other extra benefit, right?
It might help.
So things like that, they don't it's not going to make or break you. If you're going to spend money on something, you want to spend it on the whey protein, on a joint supplement, on caffeine. Caffeine is the other one.
Gotcha.
Scientifically proven to help your training. Right.
So when you you're talking on a daily basis, like, so do you work out at the same time every day? You know, is it like?
A lot of times.
Yeah, we try to. And then we pretty much, I think we got to the point where it's like we just know what
well,
times.
It's easy to kind of put it into autopilot. I mean, that's how I am.
Yeah.
I know. So, like, it's just, for me, if I'm trying to reach optimal, performance, I don't want to have to switch it up every day. That's a nightmare, So it's like, and your body, I think, gets used to the rhythm of going to the same.
We do eat a lot of the same things: chicken and rice.
Yeah, well, that's what we're having tonight for dinner.
Beef.
So
yeah,
we're having pasta and chicken for dinner. So yeah.
and then definitely water intake. We try to get like a gallon in a day. We carry around these gallon jugs with us, and then definitely, yeah.
Really?
It's a little bit more actually.
It's a lot of water.
And so the hydro jugs, which I was gonna say shameless plug, but no, because it's like they don't pay me, but whatever.
Not yet.
And then sleep, obviously. So those are other things.
How much sleep do you guys get a night?
Not enough.
If I don't get 7+, I feel it. One day it's not the end of the world, but if it's 2 or 3 days without 7+ hours of sleep, my training takes a hit. 100%.
With sleep, I find it so interesting so I listen to a lot of different podcasts, and I forgot the one I was listening to, but the one guy was a sleep expert, and this was years ago, and it was pretty life-changing for me. He said, one day, don't take any stimulants, go about your normal day, and he goes, just go to bed, and when you're tired, and try to pay attention to the clock as much as you can before you, try to understand when you actually fall asleep, and then see when you wake up naturally in the morning, and that's your window for sleep. And that was pretty life-changing for me, because I had always heard 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours. Well, for me, it's 6.5. If I sleep 7 hours, I feel groggy the rest of the day. So I go to bed. I'm a clock now. I go to bed between 10:30 and 11, and I wake up at 5 every day. And that's it's just, and it's weekends and everything. And I feel so much better since I've started doing that. I don't know. Do you guys set an alarm, or do you wake up naturally, or how does it work for you guys?
So I have an alarm because of work, but I'm also working on East Coast time with my team.
Okay, yeah.
So it's a little bit different. And then Nick's schedule is not like that, but we also have our pup, which
he wakes me up.
Nick walks.
That's an alarm clock, yeah.
Nick has to walk him, especially now because my foot's broken. So
yeah.
But what you were saying, I agree. I think I'm fine with 6 hours of sleep. But with me, I noticed if I have interrupted sleep, I could have 10 hours of interrupted sleep, and I cannot function the next day.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah.
So that's another thing. But even to talk about how I stress mental health and getting that checked out and making sure you're sleeping, when I was at probably lifting the best ever and most consistently, I was also averaging 2.5 hours of sleep a night. So I was still going to the gym, and I had my newbie gains, so that's probably why I was still able to do so well.
Right.
But I was not recovering. I was constantly sore, and I always had an injury,
Right.
so those are also things to pay attention to.
Yeah, that's that newbie gains. That's kind of a trap, I guess, because you have to understand that when you're in it, you're in that. It's not going to be infinite. It's
Right.
You play. Basketball for the first time, you make the first couple shots, you're well, in this pace, I'm going to be Michael Jordan.
Yeah, you see it I think in Olympic weightlifting a lot, because I feel like the Olympics, people can go to the same Olympics and they'll put 1 kilogram on their total, and that's what they worked for the last 4 years.
That's so wild.
And when you're at that elite level, that
any
is
incremental gain is a
even
gain.
if you lift it faster, that's a gain.
Yeah.
The same amount.
Oh,
of weight.
that's interesting. Okay, yeah, I never even. So they time your lifts?
No, that's just a thing. You
mental
can
thing.
know
Yeah.
in your own lifting, especially any strength athlete. They definitely record themselves all the time.
There's also a device you can put on the barbell
Right.
and measure your meters per second and stuff. I don't do it. I don't care for it.
You
but
can
I know
measure
some
bar
people-
path.
I know
but
some people who do it.
I'd love to introduce you to. I had a girl on the show. Her name's Elizabeth Lee. She's a part of the On Run crew, and she's an Olympic lifter, and she goes to nationals and she places, and she's tiny, you know, and she's a beast. So she lives in Oklahoma City, I think. So she comes down to Dallas though. So when she comes down, we'll have to go out and we'll have to connect you too, because I know the network and the community is large in the U.S. and it'd be cool to, you know, maybe you guys go to a meet together at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I love Olympic lifting. I think it's such a technical, beautiful sport, and it's like just as much grit as it is patience. Which powerlifting, you can just go, and they have the whole phrase grip and rip, right? You can just go ball to the wall, and everyone's like screaming at you. And Olympic lifting, it's like silence. And
really?
like,
okay.
Yeah,
see, I would have never even.
It's so
that.
so different.
Wow.
Just kidding, I'm kidding.
So, but I haven't actually seen many Olympic weightlifters down here. Which maybe it's just that. I mean, we go to Metroflex Plano, and we go to Destination Dallas, and I don't know. I just kind of assumed there would be an equal amount in the strength sports, and there's not. I mean, in Metroflex Plano, there's literally one kid that Olympic lifts there.
So it's not just a powerlifting gym. Like if I was into like Olympic lifting too, that'd be the perfect gym for me to go to.
I wouldn't say perfect, but it has bumper plates. It has an Olympic male bar.
And the bumper plates, because you're doing, you know, you're just dropping them.
Yeah, and you don't want to drop like an iron plate. It's also bad for the barbell, an iron plate from overhead onto the platform. You'll just break everything.
Gotcha.
You mean, so Dallas does have like Olympic specific gyms, but
I mean, what doesn't Dallas have, right? I mean, it's
honestly,
yeah.
No.
That's true. Well, not last year. Yeah.
That's true.
All right, moving on, because I don't want to think about that. So the last thing I guess we'll go over here is let's talk about Liberty, Strength and Power here. Right here, front and center.
Okay, so Nick actually was just programming all these people for free. And
We say program, like writing programs
their
out for
powerlifting
Sounds like you were
workouts.
like making them turn into robots or something.
And he's really, really good at it. And we actually did a lot of work on my bench before. Now we both get coached by Josh Bryant from Jailhouse Strong. But Nick, I mean, took a lot of even the things he learned through his coach and applied them to me. And my bench was skyrocketing. I mean, I was hitting like a 5-pound PR every week.
It's amazing what a little bit of guidance from someone who knows what they're doing.
Right.
You know, can
So
do.
then I really enjoy getting other women into it and getting against that stigma from like, oh, lifting weights is going to make you bulky.
I hate that.
It's right. Like it's extremely hard to get bulky like that.
right.
Like
Doesn't
that.
just happen.
Right.
You really got to try.
Right. Yeah. So then it was just kind of like we had enough people that were reaching out to us and asking us to train with them and what should we do, and we were just kind of like, you know, we already enjoy doing this, so like why don't we just make a business out of it?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And we obviously have way bigger goals. So Nick is pretty much the head coach. He has a bunch of powerlifters. He coaches strongman. He coaches tactical conditioning for.
Two of them are competing this weekend.
Right. Yeah. 2 powerlifters are competing this weekend.
Where at?
Both.
Jersey,
One in
PA?
Jersey and one in. Okay. Yeah. One in PA.
I forget where their meets are. Jersey or PA.
So this is something that's it's not geo-based. You know, you can.
Yeah, we do it remote via. I use Google Sheets.
Okay.
So I'll have a Google Sheet document, and I'll write in the plan with, you know, everything from the weight or the weight range, because it depends, the sets or the time, the reps or the time, and then the rest time, because that's a big thing too. Like 5 sets of 5 with 3 full minutes to rest is totally different than 5 sets of 5 with 30 seconds to rest.
You know what's really
Very
weird?
different.
I was a musician growing up, and I always kind of in my head equated music to, you know, weightlifting, because you're right. The lifting, when like in music, when you're playing music, and you know you're in a rest period. You know, I played the trombone. That's why I did this. But like, you play, and then you'll rest for a couple measures. Well, you're still a part of the music, even though you're not playing. And in some abstract way in my mind, that's the way rest periods work with lifting too. Because like how much you lift is going to dictate kind of like how much you rest is going to kind of like dictate the results or the outcome of that specific workout, you know? So this is what drives me freaking nuts when you go to like a lot of these big box gyms is, you know, someone will do, you know, like a set and then just like walk around for like 20 minutes.
Right.
And it's like
That set
just, like, talk.
definitely didn't have the intensity needed for that rest.
Right, exactly,
Right.
exactly.
There's time and a place for that.
Right.
When between 700-pound deadlifts, yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Unless you're a 900-pound deadlifter, then maybe 700 you're resting 3 minutes to get speed working. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's all.
I know what you
relative,
mean,
but
yeah.
Which I just want to say, I think there hasn't been many people that have stopped coaching with us unless it's for like a financial reason. And I think it's because Nick and I do not give a cookie cutter, do 5 sets of this, and then pick any chest accessory you want and do that for 12 reps.
Yeah.
Every single thing is annotated with the amount of reps that you need to do and with the amount of reps.
And people know, you know, like, people know when they're getting a cookie cutter, you know, solution
yeah.
to, and
Actually, I feel like they don't know because, I mean, some of these people on Instagram charge $200 for literally a plan
That's
that every
crazy.
single person, you just download the link and you get it. And we don't, I mean, we're very fair. I mean, I definitely came from a place where, like, I was budgeting for my gym membership, you know,
Yeah.
so I couldn't afford some guidance. So I think that's also, you know, making it available to
Yeah.
people is also really important.
one of the best bits of advice, or a bit of advice that really like hit home with me, and I don't know where I heard it, but and it's like what I'm doing with everything, and you as well. Like, find something you love, and then just figure out a way to make money doing it. You know, and if you're passionate about it and you're fanatical about it, it's gonna show. It's gonna come through. And I think what you guys are doing with this. So how can you be found, or how can people find it? I mean, I'm gonna put the link to it. I'm assuming you have a website or some kind of, you know, central location, but I'll put that in the show notes. But like, how do you get to it? What's the website?
We have our Instagram, and a lot of the athletes will contact mostly Nick through Instagram DMs. But I mean, we have our website, we have our Gmail. We do anything. I coached my friend to like get down to her wedding goal weight. I mean, we do
That's so cool.
whatever you want to do. We'll help you do it. We have special rates for military and police. Nick actually created like a free training for people that are trying to get ready to go into like a police academy or
Oh, that's
basic training,
great.
things like that.
We saw a lot of that at our old job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, so Gusa actually has another question here. He goes, so why the banded bench? What does that do?
I'm not sure if this is referring to what I had posted today or not.
I'm assuming like fans around your arms or something?
That's what I posted today.
Yeah, okay.
Normally, banded bench would mean you attach the bands from the floor to the bar.
Gotcha.
And then when you press it, it creates more
It's
resistance.
yeah.
That you would use to either build triceps or work on speed with a lighter weight so that you could throw it as hard as you can without.
It's like running with a parachute on,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So I assume this means what I did yesterday. That was just the bands were around my wrist pulling me in, and I had to fight it apart. So that basically, if you grab something and pull out, it tightens your back. So I was just basically working on a new warm-up technique to get my back tighter.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. So there you go. There's your answer for you.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Oh,
Getting
okay.
my back
Boom.
tight via the mental cue of pulling apart.
Which means that he can hear us too, so this sounds good. 'Cause it was
yeah.
well, we're coming up on an hour here, so I think it might be a good time to stop because we have dinner waiting for us, and you know, this guy can't go too long without eating because, you know, we got to fuel that fire. But I want to thank you for coming here, especially with the broken foot, you know, and we tried to do this in the lobby of the apartment complex, but it didn't work out, so now we're here crammed in the studio. But any last words, you know, any last thoughts you want to leave? How about somebody wanting to get into this? You know, what would be some advice that you may want to give them?
Do you want to go first?
You.
Okay. Just start. Literally just start. I mean, you can find a cookie. If you're a newbie, you can find a cookie cutter program like I did on bodybuilding.com. I mean, going through us would be cheaper, but, and there's so many free resources on YouTube. One that I'm thinking of off the top of my head is Juggernaut. If you Google Juggernaut, Pillars of Strength, I think it's called, or Pillars of something. But anyways, they work through every single part of each lift. So there's so many free resources. Elite FTS, Juggernaut, those are all things that you should look into if you want to start. But just going to the gym and saying, I'm going to have a squat day, bench day, deadlift day, and then an accessory day. Like, that's perfect. You don't need to have the world's best coach to be, you know, a competitive lifter. You just don't. You just need to really work at it and prioritize it.
And a lot of it's you don't know what you don't know. So you got to start somewhere and then just you figure it out as you go, right?
And definitely, I mean, I would say if I could change anything, I would have gone to a powerlifting gym sooner. Because like I said, the community is awesome. You'll meet people there. If they see you doing a heavy accessory and, you know, it's heavier than the week before, they'll say something, you know. Especially here in Texas, people are so much nicer. So I imagine it's even more friendly than it was in New York. So.
Well, and on that note, because I think the lesson that we've all learned here today is you should move to Texas. Well, thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. And, you know, I appreciate you guys coming out. All the links to everything we talked about are going to be in the show notes. Make sure you follow them on Instagram. They got a lot of cool stuff coming up. And Liberty, Strength, and Power. Get on. Come on. They're awesome.